Fog lay thick on the North Sea and made its own light, a gray that glowed around lantern glass and vanished a yard beyond. In the dark before dawn on January 30th, 1895, the German liner Elbe steamed slow on her westbound track, every whistle blast drawn long, every lookout straining for a shape in the milk. Down below, families slept with the easy faith that belonged to big ships. On the bridge, the officers watched the compass swing and counted seconds between bell and horn. They saw nothing until they saw a wall. A blacker mass came out of the fog on a crossing course, bow wave hissing. The cry went up, hard aport, and the telegraph came back in brass, but water would not be bullied. The stranger's iron stem punched into Elbe's port side with a sound like a barn caving in. Plates split. Lights died. A rush of brine roared through the hole, and the ship lurched so hard that people woke on the floor. Steam hissed where seawater met iron hot from the boilers. The ship shivered and groaned. The other steamer backed away and vanished. On Elbe's bridge, Captain von Goessel felt the list deepen and gave the order he had never wanted to give. Abandon ship. Rockets went up, orange ghosts in the fog. No answer came. Men ran to the boats with axes, broke ice from the falls, and fought gear that had frozen in place. One lifeboat reached the rail, took a crush of bodies, and capsized as hands kept climbing. A second boat touched water, swung clear, and filled with a handful of crew and a few passengers. Everything happened in minutes. Compartments flooded faster than pumps could matter. On the high side, women and children gathered as ordered and waited for boats that did not come. Ice jammed the blocks. The falls would not pay. The crew hacked until their palms bled, but winter allowed no grace. In less than 20 minutes, the liner yielded, bow dipping, stern lifting, and then the sea took her with a low roar the fog swallowed at once. In the boat, the survivors could see nothing but one another's faces and the dim afterglow of dying rockets. Spray needled their coats. They kept the bow into the seas and rowed in rhythm the way bluejackets knew regardless of tongue. The maid in the stern sheets, her name was Anna Boker, worked the bailing can with a stubbornness that made the sailors treat her like one of their own. A crack in the gunwale opened. Somebody wedged it with a boot heel and kept pulling. 5 hours passed by their best count, the same square of water folding and unfolding under oars. Steamers moved somewhere in the world, but here no hull showed. Near daylight, a Lowestoft fishing smack, wild flower came out of the weather and ranged alongside with the clumsy grace the sea respects. Lines flew, hands reached. The skipper, William Wright, hauled them aboard by harness and armpit, and later said another hour would have finished them. Shore learned the tally in fragments. Elbe had left Bremerhaven the day before for New York by way of Southampton, a routine sailing on a route she had known for years. She carried hundreds, families in steerage with the geography of America folded in their pockets, second-class travelers with satchels, first-class cabins whose stewards knew their passengers by name. Almost all were gone. Only a fishing boat brought numbers any port could trust, 20 saved out of a ship's company otherwise measured by rumor. The name of the stranger arrived with the same mail that carried condolences. She was the British steamer Crathie, a trader bound between Aberdeen and Rotterdam. Her bow was crushed by the blow, and she ran for port flying signals of distress. The captain said he had feared for his own crew and never knew which ship he had struck in the fog. Men in Lowestoft read those lines and folded the paper with jaws set. Wreckage and grief disliked arithmetic that excused itself. Courts followed as tide lines follow wind. In Rotterdam that autumn, a panel found Crathie at fault for the collision. The reprimand laid on her master for quitting the scene struck many as light payment in a case where whole families had gone to the bottom. None of it raised a hull. Germany raged in print. Britain measured out censure. The North Sea kept its counsel. What had happened aboard came out by degrees from the men able to tell it. The ropes had frozen, the blocks had jammed, the tilt had turned corridors into wells. Passengers felt along unfamiliar walls in bare feet, clutched children, and met doors that no longer opened the way instinct promised. Von Goessel gathered the vulnerable to the high side and called for silence so orders carried. He did not leave his ship. When she went, he went. For the rest, there were only small proofs that a world had existed. China later found in trawl nets, a letter cover stamped to show it survived the sea, a spoon blackened by time. Newspapers printed the photograph they owned, Elbe at speed in an easier season, 2 funnels and 4 masts, handsome in profile, as if a clean line could stand in for the rooms and voices she had held. Divers much later found her resting place off the Dutch coast, and lamps showed companionways canted at the angle survivors remembered. The numbers hardened into their brief epitaph. Hundreds aboard, only 20 saved, gone in scarcely 20 minutes. The figure alone did not explain why the wreck mattered beyond its tally. It mattered because fog and caution can live side by side and still fail, because a small mistake on one bridge can kill families asleep in another hull, because equipment trusted in drill can betray in winter, frozen falls, iced pulleys, wire that refuses to run. It mattered because risk travels both ways. The small ship owed duty too. Afterward, companies looked harder at boat drills in cold weather, at keeping spare gear warm against frost, at clearing decks of loose timber that could jam a fall. Mariners compared notes on how rockets show in fog, orange and small, swallowed quickly. Newspapers that had sold romance began to write in a different key about reckoning and redundancy. None of it returned the missing, but it hardened a seam in knowledge that might hold for the next crew in the next gray dawn. Years later, men out of Lowestoft and Dutch ports still hauled up shards and told new hands the story. A fisherman would touch a porcelain fragment and speak a name as if the glaze remembered it. A retired sailor would point at the place on a chart and tap his nail where soundings bracketed the coordinates. Those recollections did not sharpen blame. They kept a bell ringing in weather that muffled most things. What endured most in the living memory of that morning was the image of a single boat shoving into waves that wanted to fold it like paper. 20 faces pale as dawn, a maid in a borrowed coat bailing, as if the ocean could be emptied one scoop at a time, and crewmen pushing their hands raw against oar and ice. That boat held the only voices left to tell what a fog can hide and how quickly iron learns to sink. The rest remained where the chart prints numbers and the sea keeps counsel. The ocean had not meant malice. It had meant only to be itself, cold, thick with weather, impatient with the blind. Elbe had ridden it for 14 years, a queen in emigrant stories and a line item in a ledger, and then in 1 minute she had been demoted to testimony and wreckage. Mourning wore its usual color. On land, families waited by doors that did not open and read telegrams that offered no reasons, only facts. Thank you for listening to the Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.